Jen, thanks so much for coming on the Vantage Point Podcast, aka Jen Does Art Now. How are you?
It's so weird. Yeah, I feel famous. Thank you for having me.
Well, firstly, how would you describe your art style then? For someone who's never seen something that you've made, how would you describe your style?
I would say it's maybe whimsical, it's fun, it can be crazy, it can maybe evoke some feeling in it, I guess. All very, I don't want to say lazily done, but these are not masterpieces. They're very easy to draw, but there's just something very easy about it. It's fun. And through speaking to people, mainly my parents and people who love me, but it makes them happy. So that, which is why I continue to do it. It makes them happy and it makes me happy.
You say it doesn't take a lot of skill to draw something simply, but I would say it takes more skill to be an
Yeah.
expert on something and know how to draw it in a simple way that people can still see the realism in it. Would you agree with
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah, I would. Maybe that's the British self-deprecating thing that we all kind of have in us. I mean, I remember trying to explain to a friend why I loved Quentin Blake so much. And as you said, you're right. It takes so much skill to do something that looks very, very easy. I
Mm.
mean, and he's my idol as well. But yeah, it's a style. We all have our style, whether you paint, whether you make music, whatever art or whatever you do it with your soul. And I don't think I could try and draw or paint a different way. So it's just something that comes very naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an example I'd use is if you're an expert on something, you should have the ability to explain it in simple terms. So same
Mm-hmm.
in art, if you're a great artist, you should be able to draw something simply to the same high degree.
Yeah.
You could relate that even to sport. So boxing, for example, you can win a boxing match on the fundamental basics, and as long as you're a master of those fundamentals, you can beat someone who has all sorts of experience with all sorts of different techniques. It's just mastering those basics and showing your skill in a simple way.
Absolutely. I mean, I teach preschool children, and if I can't explain something to them easily, then I don't understand it myself,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
perfect.
probably
Yeah,
why I work in preschool and not in high school, because I would be in a lot of trouble there. But, for me, yeah, like you have you have to know why you're doing it as well. It comes when you force it, when you try too hard, that's when you start to lose what you're doing. And that can apply to absolutely anything with sport as well. When you try too hard, when you go down those paths that you don't necessarily feel that comfortable, it just things, I don't know, I just get a bit of a block when I try and do that.
would you say there's like an overall theme to your work, or is it more of a sort of piece by piece, how you're feeling on the day kind of thing, or is there a sort of message you're trying to spread through the pieces you make?
That's a really good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked that. I think as I have grown as a person, and I do not shy away from the fact that I talk a lot about like my own mental health journey. And I went through a really bad period about 4 years ago, and that's when I started therapy, and I also started to draw and experiment with art. And it's just grown as I have grown. So if I'm having a bad day and I've drawn something that looks somewhat darker, it's good to share that. I know that my message is more of levity and lightness, but there's a balance to everything. There's a yin and yang, and I definitely, whenever I become inspired through when I feel really good, but equally when I feel quite crappy and sad, and I think that that gives it relatability for other people. And that's the thing that I'm probably most proud about, actually, that when people look at it, they can go, yeah, like I get that.
I was actually going to get to this a bit later on, but since you bring it up, we might as well talk about it now.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of benefit that creating stuff can have on your mental health, and you see a lot of like wellness gurus and mental health, preachers basically on social media. It's abundant with them now, but not a lot of them talk about the benefits of creating something every day, and that part of your brain that unlocks when you're making when you're writing something, even if you're not very good, just using that part of your brain. Because
Mm-hmm.
I believe anyway, if you're not using every part of your brain, there'll be some sort of feeling of like dissatisfaction that you're not
Yeah.
sort of filling your potential in a way because part of your brain isn't being used unless you're actively stimulating it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important. I mean, and I know that now because in my 20s, even in my teens, I was so driven to get the degrees, to move up in the career ladder, to do everything that I thought I needed to do. And I completely forgot to have any hobbies, anything outside of being an adult. And when I got to my breakdown, or short, actually before that, I remember crying and being in floods of tears and saying to a loved one, I have nothing, which was very Barbara Streisand and it was very dramatic. But in that moment, I felt like I had nothing. I didn't have a hobby. I didn't have anything to pour like my soul into. I had a job. I had money coming in, but that what I thought was going to make
It's
me
not
really
enough.
happy, it made me feel miserable, and I was so confused. And it wasn't until I started to experiment and I started to do art that I started to feel whole again. And it sounds so cliche, and when I say it, I'm like, oh God, but it's really true. And of course, it doesn't have to be art; it can be absolutely anything. But I feel like I wish I'd known that earlier in my life.
Yeah.
That you really need to hold on to something and not completely focus on the money, the job, the career, because that's only part of the jigsaw that is yourself. That's only part of it. And I don't think, and being a teacher myself, I don't think that is given as much importance as it should.
I noticed that. And I came to the realization, well, I had a little think basically at one point, which do I value more, sort of time or money? And it's about finding a balance really, because you need
Mm-hmm.
money to sort of get by. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, am I going to put 100% into stuff that just makes me money? I could do that, but would I not rather do stuff, like this essentially, I guess for me, find something that I enjoy outside of that, that's my thing that I enjoy doing, a creative outlet. In the past, I've got into drawing, I've got into writing different stuff before. And for me right now, it's this, just using that part of my brain to create stuff. I found that absolutely essential. There's so many guys I know, because obviously I'm a fitness instructor. So a lot of guys I know, they're well into their training and they focus all day on training their muscles, but they don't train their brain, as corny as that sounds. But you need to. Otherwise you lose it, or you just get into this sort of spiral. Now tell me a bit about that time for you when you were in that sort of darker time. Did you use art then as a way to express the bad feelings you had? And did you find you were able to create like amazing stuff because of strong feelings?
Oh, it was terrible at first. It was
Right.
terrible. The art, like, but it was mine, and I enjoyed it. And I think that art and creativity, you have to be, and it's well known, but you have to be comfortable with being a beginner at something. You have to make peace with the fact that whatever you will start, it won't be great. But I just got such a big kick out of it. I mean, truth be told, I didn't start straight away. I actually got quite physically unwell. Like I had like the flu or something, and I was feeling really sorry for myself. And I was on the sofa, and I had gotten like a new kind of notebook because I love stationery, and I just decided to sketch. And I then posted it on Instagram, and I thought, yeah, okay, I did something. And it wasn't even related to my feelings or anything. It was just, I think it was like mushrooms or something. It was like, it was badly drawn, but I felt good about it. It wasn't until later on that I started to become a little bit better, that I could use my skills to make something that kind of represented what I felt like. But again, you don't have to be good at art to get something out of art. I used it first as just a tool to just go to a different place, almost like meditation. you're just solely focused on something, you're creating something. And then later on, I used it as a tool to show other people, despite the fact I talk a lot, I'm not somebody who's sometimes good with words and expressing how I feel. And I think in pictures. So in my own therapy sessions, my therapist has brought a pad and some watercolor paints and pens. And sometimes when the words don't come out, I'll just scroll something and then she'll see it and she'll be like, okay, I get you now. So it's all just, yeah, it's just been a journey. It's coincided. Art has walked next to me by my side through this whole thing, and it's felt really good.
Well, yeah. Well, you seem very like in touch with like sort of what's going on in your brain now. Like you seem very aware, and obviously it seems like you've moved quite a long way past that sort of dark spot. But whenever you need inspiration, do you ever sort of go back there to sort of try and maybe capture some of those feelings now that you can look at it sort of objectively and use that in the creative process now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm human, and despite all of the stuff that I've done, I get taken off guard. There are situations that arise, like in anyone's life, that no matter how much I meditate and I go to therapy and I do yoga, that will still make me panic and make me implode. And art really helps. Like, and I do use it then to, okay, I'm feeling this. I'm going to use this and I'm going to sketch or draw or paint or just sob onto the paper, and it will make me feel better. So, I can't say that I don't think anybody is like the finished article in their lives. And, I am on a journey. I'm a lot better, but, things happen, and that's when I can kind of use it again to help me in a kind of therapeutic sense. Although I have never actually gone to art therapy. I know that there's like a really big strand of like art therapy. I never I never went to that. I just kind of discovered it within myself.
What is art therapy? Could you describe that
Art,
for people who are maybe curious about it?
art therapy is I guess it's just like counseling, but you use art in a way to process emotions and feelings, and you do that with a therapist with you who advises and helps you along the way with that journey. My therapy isn't that. It's like cognitive behavioral therapy. Slightly different, but again, she's very enthusiastic that I use art and actually writing in that way too. So
It sounds like one of the mistakes you made early on was being super duper focused on success and a career rather than balancing that with the things you actually enjoy doing as well. And I wonder now, have you found a way to maybe find creativity or find a way to enjoy what you're doing as a job as well as doing art in your own time?
yes, I think I have. I think because I am a happier person, because I have that outlet, that it's translated into me being a lot more relaxed in my job, a lot more calm, a lot more, I don't know, just genuine. They say that like when you work on yourself, and it can be through any, with mental health particularly, when you work on yourself, it has like a ripple effect and it spreads outwardly. So when you invest in yourself, you're investing in everybody that's around you, because the people in my life,
Yeah.
my loved ones, the children that I teach have benefited from me doing what I do, because I'm just better. I'm more in touch. I understand people more. I have more empathy and time for everyone, and that's like a really good thing. As well as that, I have like the art in my classes as well, but it has made me a much happier person. And who doesn't like that? Who doesn't like seeing that in people? And
It's good to see. It's good to
yeah.
see. What would you say then to because obviously you said you work at primary school, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say then to kids? Because obviously that they will have yet to go through probably many of the mental health struggles and maybe this kind of conversation we're having now. I mean, I know I would have never considered anything like this when I was anywhere close to that age. how do you talk to kids in a way that might get them to maybe think about, how much of their time they spend doing the things they enjoy and how much of their time they spend chasing their ambitions? Because obviously both are important for them to consider at that age as well, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I work with quite young children, so those things don't really like happen, but I have worked with older children, and particularly what I notice, even with younger children, is anxiety. There's just it's all around, and I was an anxious child, so I can't necessarily say that this is a modern phenomenon that we're seeing. I'm in my 30s, and I was a stressed out little kid, but I do see it with children, and because they've got a lot on. They've got a lot on their plates. They've got all the clubs that they need to be a part of. They're the older children. They have all the social media. What do you want to be when you're older? Like, I want to be online. I want to be present. I want to be, and I feel like that's the next big thing that we need to, I don't want to say guard our children against, but the pressure to always be present and always be willing to give your time to everyone and everything, because this generation of children, I think it was described to me that they are the alpha generation, and they have spent more time in virtual reality than they have in reality, which is utterly terrifying
Surely
to
not.
me.
Surely it can't be that much.
But with
How
with
can that work?
YouTube, with being like with screen time, with things in the classroom now, with all the different technologies that they've got, it's there all the time. I have toddlers that I see that have that action already to make the screen go bigger. I mean, I'm
Well,
not guessing what age you are, but we certainly did not know what
no.
that did when we were young. So it's
No,
about
I didn't have a
it's
phone until I was about 15.
yeah, same. I went to a phone box a lot. So I guess it's about what can we use that for children to find this sense of calm, whether it be sports, music, exercise, art, all of these passions that take us to a state that's almost like meditative, that's almost it removes us from the constant like scrolling and the anxiety that comes around with that. That's what
Mm.
I kind of work on and want to help children with.
Awesome. Yeah, it must be hard for artists coming up nowadays because there's so much about, especially, you spoke about social media and how much art you can access at the tip of your fingers. How hard is it to sort of become an artist as a career path now? It must be almost impossible, right? There's so much competition.
I really did have a bit of a moment a couple of months ago, and I was just sitting there and I just thought, I hate this. I hate making prints. I hate doing the cards. I mean, we do like a craft fair in my local community. So all I need to do is take a table outside of my house twice a year. And I hate that. That's stressful enough for me. So to be like a commercial artist, there is a pressure. And I'm sure you'll find it that whenever you're kind of good at something or whenever you really enjoy something, you feel a pressure to kind of slap a price on it and commercialize it. Certainly
Yeah.
for me, when people were saying, "Oh, we really like your stuff," I thought, okay, well, I have to do something with it. I have to be bigger than life. I have to always post. And it wasn't until really a couple of months ago, I thought, this is making me not want to do art because I'm finding this as a second job. And I've already got a job. I don't think I want to, and I am not poo-pooing any commercial artist because, we need that. I mean, I've got art on my wall. Like, you need those
Mm.
people. It was taking me too much away from the reason why I started art in the first place. And I just don't think I'm cut out for that because it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because as a kid, I was always like in my class at least, I was the best artist in my class, which obviously doesn't say much when you're a kid, but either way, I thought, oh, I've got something going here. So I took art at A level, fine art, and I ended up really hating it. It put me off. I probably haven't done any art to this date from
Yeah.
doing fine art at A level, just because I felt it was so restrictive, and you were given deadlines, and it was like, make loads of pieces about this one thing, loads of pieces about this one thing, and you have to describe everything about it. And I'm there thinking, that's not the point of art. You're supposed to interpret it. You're not supposed to state what it is. It takes away some of the the magic
Yeah.
of it, and you know, the inspiration of making art in the first place when you feel like you have to do it. Now,
Mhm.
do you think when there's a financial incentive, I mean, you touched on this a little bit already, but when there is the money side of things, do you think it can spoil art, and do you think it can make artists create, just pump out content for the sake of it and take away their creativity, and like you say, probably enjoy it less? Do you think it affects the art when that happens?
I felt for me personally that it did because I got some commissions, some people that their commissions were amazing, that I did have fun. But I'm not gonna lie, the majority are like, can you paint this building? And they will send you the worst, on the greyest day, like just a grey tenement building, and you're like, how am I gonna like and is it worth X amount to do? I'm going to spend a long time doing this. I'm not particularly proud of it. There you go. Yeah, I spent too much of my life pushing forward with things that weren't necessarily for me. That now my I have a bit of a limit to, if it doesn't feel good for me, I'm kind of more inclined to quite quickly go, no, I don't think so. I do think that it can spoil creativity because
Mm.
creativity finds you sometimes most of the time when you're not really doing that much.
Yeah,
If I was to say, like, paint me sadness, you're like, well, okay, what does that mean? I don't feel that way just now. Oh, okay, let me do something with that. Some people
yeah.
can, some talented people can. I cannot.
Do you find it inspires you to go to travel and to make an effort as an artist to experience new things? And like when you do that, I saw you went roller skating fairly recently, didn't you? You know, maybe doing stuff like that, trying
Yeah.
something you've not done before might give you a bit of inspiration to draw something new. Do you find
Oh
that?
yeah. I mean, I partly like use those as fuel to, because something usually chaotic happens in those moments where I try something new. Luckily, no bones were broken, thank God.
That's
But
good.
I
That's
was
good.
able to, like, draw it, and even like if I have a really bad period, then I'll like draw something to do with that. I definitely think now that I'm like mentally in a better place, I want to do new things. I want to try new things, and I definitely think that feeds into the art. What I will say though is, even me going on a walk around the block or going through the botanic gardens or going for a swim, something, because I'm not thinking about it, something will just pop into my head, and it finds you in very, very weird situations a lot of the time when you're not even thinking about it. So yeah, you don't need to be doing like, scaling of, the Forth Road Bridge, or, paragliding, but, little moments fuel it
Yeah. Yeah.
if you're
I
open
went
to
for
it.
Yeah, I went for a walk through the forest the other day, and just walking, looking up at the trees and that, I just started getting ideas for stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this doesn't come to me when I'm just sitting in work.
Mhm.
Totally just changing your environment can really affect your output, your creativity, especially when you maybe you feel like you're stuck in a rut or something.
Mhm.
You touched on this earlier again, but like social media, do you think in overall terms it's been a positive or a negative for artists?
Oh my Lord. What are you trying to do? I am I gonna get cancelled? No, for me personally, it was really good because it was a it, I could share it. I could share the stuff, and a lot of people who would never have seen the silliness got to see it, and a lot of people, it helped them, and I got nice messages back, and through social media I have met people such as yourself. I've met people from all over the world that that I have just really interesting, nice little relationships with, that I would just never have without having that medium. Do I think
So it's a
that
good thing.
it for me it's been a good thing. But there's a balance to be had, because a couple of years ago I did feel the pressure. I think it can suck you in, though. The pressure to just keep posting, keep keep feeding the. I've never known what this means, but people say it, feed the algorithm. It's the
Mm.
algorithms, and you get it. You can get bogged down by that, and that's what I think can sometimes be a bad and a negative element to social media. That there is a pressure, particularly for artists, because artists are not robots. It's like musicians. We can't just churn it out. For some people, painters particularly, can take months to make a
Yeah.
beautiful painting. And if you're not posting regularly, then not that many people are going to see it. And it's just, there's a sinister side to that, because it fuels an anxiety within, I guess, the art community of how one should be producing their work. I think on a personal level, I've tried, and sometimes I'm not good at it, but I'm trying to find that balance. That, you know what, if only a few people see it, I'm fine with that. I can live with that. I don't need hundreds of thousands of people seeing it.
Yeah, you'd like to think the quality of the art would speak for itself, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. With what you said about the algorithm, it is quite cruel in that it does reward consistency, and if you're
Yeah,
consistently good, then great. But then you decide, oh, okay, I've done really good until this point. I want to take a week off now,
yeah,
and then next minute you try and you work on a piece and you post it, and it might be the best one you've ever done, but the
yeah,
algorithm shoots it down. It
yeah,
drops it because you've not been consistent. Your audience is engaged more with other accounts by this point because they've just interacted more with them. It doesn't mean they necessarily like the other accounts more than
yeah,
you, but yeah, it does punish you essentially for
yeah.
leaving the apps or leaving the system.
Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, it's hard to try and remove yourself from that pressure when you see such a drop, in interaction and engagement. But, we as artists, or whoever you are much more important than that machine. And we are not robots. You are not a robot. You deserve to rest. You deserve a break. You deserve to just have time away from that, because the best work is never created. And I know that because I've tried to push through. No one's best work's ever created when it's like, oh God, I need to put something up.
Hmm. Does it worry you to see um, art by robots like
Yeah,
AI? Does that worry you to see? Because in theory, if you had an AI robot that could essentially make art for you, and maybe you touch it up a little bit yourself, takes like 5 minutes, maybe less, and then you could post that every day, potentially make pretty good art if you've just got the right idea to start with to input into the AI. Could that be a real detriment to actual art accounts?
I think so. I actually just think as well to maybe the human spirit of
Hmm.
why we do it in the first place. Like I started to do, it was a very short series, but I started to take the AI images and convert them back to my own drawings, to kind of like turn it on its head. Because I can
That's a
see
great
people.
idea, by the way. That's an awesome
I know,
idea.
thank you. Yeah, I why do we do art? Art makes us feel something. It's like poetry, it's like writing. People don't realize how important these things are until something like happens to them in their life, good or bad. They fall in love. I can't remember, an actor had said something like this: until you fall in love, until somebody dies, you're heartbroken, and then all of these things become important. Nobody thinks about art like deeply most of the time, but it's used when we need it for our souls. And to then have that generated by a program, for me, seems to take the heart and the joy, and or the pain, the beauty away from it.
Yeah,
That's just what
yeah.
I think.
I think it makes you feel good when you can. you can sort of see the artist feeling, whether it's a
Yeah,
painting or whether it's a, you know, something they've written, and you can really feel the intent behind it. I
yeah,
think that's what currently AI is lacking. And I
yeah,
do hope that it doesn't gain the ability to somehow just absolutely capture that, because it really would affect artists, I think, going forward. But
yeah,
hopefully it will keep, you know, we'll always be able to tell, I feel at least, when
yeah.
something's real and when it's not, when it's a real emotion or when it's not a real
Mhm.
emotion.
Yeah. I mean, these
Fingers
images
crossed.
look cool. Like these images are not, but they are very different. They are very different to art that is produced by humans, which is a really weird thing to say that we're talking about like artificial intelligence and art and all of that. But yeah, they do look cool, but I just it's yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
is
think
what
they have
it
their
is.
uses. Like maybe if you're a brand and you want to advertise and you want to make a sick logo or something like that, maybe,
Yeah,
you know, type the name into an AI, see what it comes up with. Could be fun.
yeah.
Could save you money. But yeah, anyway, we've not got too much time left, so I just want to finish on a little bit about Scotland. So,
Mhm.
you know, this is where you're from, and we have some listeners around the world now, like America and from the Philippines. Now, how would you describe Scotland to people who've maybe never been there?
I think it's like a fairy tale. A cold one can be dark, can sometimes
Like
be
Frozen?
miserable. Yes, I think it's the best place. I'm obviously I'm biased, but you know I live in Edinburgh, and I've lived other places in my life, and I love Edinburgh. It's beautiful, and in any season, it's beautiful. In every season, it's beautiful. From the cold, dark winters to the spring, when we were coming into spring. I mean, it's raining outside. I'm looking outside my window, it's raining, but the flowers are starting to bloom. The birds are chirping. It's just lovely. You can be, what I love about Scotland is that you can be in the Highlands within like an hour and a half away from Edinburgh or Glasgow. Everything is
Oh
just so
well.
close together. So you just have such a difference of landscapes. So traveling around is very easy.
Yeah, me and my friends are planning a road trip around Scotland later this year. So hopefully summertime or something like that, when it's hopefully it's warmest and nicest. And you know, I was wondering if you had to plan the perfect road trip around Scotland, as someone who's never seen most of the places around Scotland like me, where would you go?
Well, I think the Central Belt, because Edinburgh and Glasgow are so close together, they're only like, it's about an hour like away. Do the like the cities first, and then go across the Firth or Forth, and you get to Fife, the Kingdom of Fife, and they have beautiful beaches, and then you go right around the coast, past Dundee, Inverness, Aberdeen, and then come right back down to the west coast. Places like Loch Lomond and the lake particularly is just absolutely stunning. So different, so different east to west. I feel like I'm an American. Like, yeah, it's so different. I mean, it takes like about 3 hours, 3, 4 hours to get there, but it's beautiful. But bring Midgie spray, because if you go in the summertime and you go up into the Highlands, they will eat you alive.
Final question for you, Jen. Is a Loch Ness monster real? And if it was, would you
Yes,
draw it?
yes, and I have,
Oh wow, okay.
I have. You need to follow me to find out what it looks like.
Well, thanks so much, Jen. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks so much for coming on.
You're very welcome. How cool has this been? Thank you so much.